I'm so happy to see all of you here today. For those of you joining us here in Arlington, Texas, let me share with you, the rain will stop. I will admit that I've started to see animals starting to pair up 2 by 2. Not sure what that means. For those of us joining online from wherever you are, we hope that you have a blessed Sabbath, that you are safe, that you are dry, that you are warm. But wherever you are, here or around the world, we know that God's presence is with us and that His Spirit is with us as we lift up our voices in praise this morning. You have, over the last couple of weeks, gone through a passage in the book of 1 Timothy. Pastor Allen has been looking at this series entitled Be Rich and what it means to be rich in the 21st century. And he's asked me to come in and bat cleanup, so to speak, as we put kind of a bow on the series of what it means to be rich as a Christian. We've been looking at the passage there in 1 Timothy chapter 6 that says this: command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, be rich in good deeds, and be generous and willing to share. 3 lessons. 3 lessons we've learned over the last couple of weeks. The first lesson is do good for those who can't and won't do good for you. Lesson number 2, don't place your hope in riches, but in the one who richly provides. Amen? Amen. And number 3, since you have more, do more, give more. Amen. But Paul's not done. He continues in verse 19 of 1 Timothy chapter 6 with these words. He says, in this way, those who are rich, will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. What does it say? In this way, you and I, will lay up treasures for themselves as a firm foundation for when? For tomorrow? For the coming age. So that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. Paul's pointing out that there is much more to life than what we experience here on planet Earth. That while God wants to give us an abundant, a super abundant life here on earth, we also are to look beyond today, tomorrow. We are looking to the ceaseless ages of eternity. You know, it's interesting. Paul is echoing something Jesus said decades before. We've heard it, I'm sure, Matthew chapter 6. Jesus says, do not store for yourselves treasure on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasure where? In heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Verse 21, for where your treasure is, there your what? Heart. Your heart will be also. So what is Paul saying to Timothy? What is Jesus saying on the Sermon on the Mount? Simply this: we as Christ followers are to see life through the lens of eternity. Did you catch that? We are to see life through the lens of eternity. I can still remember, I was in the 2nd grade. I was in a little church school in western Pennsylvania, and I started to have a hard time seeing the blackboard. Back then it was blackboards. Some of you remember that, right? But I didn't want to tell my mom. Because I had a feeling, even as a 2nd grader, I knew that was where it was going. I would have to go to the eye doctor, and then my nickname would become Four Eyes. But my mom finally figured it out after the teacher said, Tom's having a hard time seeing the chalkboard, so you might want to go get him checked. And so I went, got checked, and I got these glasses. And they were ugly. I mean, it was the mid-'80s after all. And so my mom, so gently every day, I would put them on. As I left the house, she would take me and drop me off to where I'd pick up my ride to go to school. And guess what happened as soon as I got in that car to go to school? They came off. Because I was convinced I would rather look good than see good. Again, moms being moms, she found out that I wasn't wearing my glasses. And so moms being moms, using psychology that only moms have, she says, why don't you just wear your glasses for one day? See if it makes a difference. And so I put my glasses on for one day, and wow, it was like the world came alive. The sad thing is that my eyes continue to get worse. I'm almost 44, and everybody who's a little bit older than I am tell me that bifocals are in my future. But glasses are important. If I take my glasses off now, I can hardly see out there. Maybe I need to put another pair of glasses on. There you go. See, when we put glasses on, we see better. Why? Because we see through the lens and it makes everything clearer. What Paul and Jesus is saying is that when we put our glasses on, we can see life through the lens of eternity. Let me put the right glasses back on so I can see. You see, when we put the right glasses on, we recognize that viewing life, especially our wealth, through the lens of eternity loosens its grip on us, meaning wealth. We're not so focused on accumulating wealth when we see through the lens of eternity. Sometimes, though, we forget to put our glasses on. We forget to make sure that we're looking at life through the lens of eternity. And when we forget to put our glasses on and look at life through the lens of eternity, then we focus on rich people problems. You know what I'm talking about, right? We focus on the fact that we have bad cell coverage. Every time I drive across Joe Pool Lake to go home, there is a dead spot in the middle of that bridge. And I get so frustrated. But when I put my glasses on and look at life through the lens of eternity, I realize I am blessed to be able to have a phone that I can carry with me. When we forget to put our glasses and look at life through eternity, we get frustrated with slow internet. You know, there's places in the world that don't have internet. They would kill to have slow internet. When we forget to put our glasses on and look at life through the lens of eternity, we get frustrated when the AT&T or the Time Warner guy doesn't show up on time. And when we call, they say, we will be there between 9 and 5, and you go, thank you very much. When we don't put our glasses on and focus on life through the lens of eternity, we get frustrated when we go out to Globe Life Park and pay $8 for a hot dog. Or we get really frustrated when we drive up to AT&T Stadium and pay $75 to park. I'm not sure why you'd want to pay $75 to park at AT&T. Maybe to see the team the Cowboys are playing. I don't know. Rich people problems, right? When we forget to look at life through the lens of eternity, we get frustrated at the security lines going through the airport when we're flying on a vacation to Hawaii. Rich people problems. We get frustrated when we don't put on our glasses to see life through the lens of eternity with rising healthcare costs, forgetting that we are blessed here to have the type of healthcare we have, because there are many places around the world that don't have anything close to what we have. Paul is pointing out, Jesus is pointing out, that those of us who are rich, those of us who are Christ followers and have the riches of eternity, need to start looking at life through the lens of eternity and focus much more on the bigger picture instead of the immediate. Because see, here's what I've discovered. I've discovered that God's economy is not our economy. Amen. David points out that God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. In other words, God owns everything. Do you hear what I said? God owns how much? Everything. And he has blessed us, and he gives us the opportunity to take care of what he owns. We are the caretaker. We are the steward of what he has given us, because God's economy is not our economy. So that money in your bank account, that's God's. That car, that house, it's God's. God owns everything, because God's economy is not our economy. You know, another example of this, what is one of the most precious metals on planet Earth? Gold, right? What is an ounce of gold going for now? $1,500, $2,000 an ounce? Do you realize that while we as human beings clamor after gold, do you realize that when we get to heaven, gold is going to be used as pavement? God's economy is not my economy. And I understand that. I begin to live life that way when I put my glasses on and see life through the lens of eternity. I recognize that, as the old hymn says, this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up way beyond the blue. When we put our glasses on and we see what our wealth is, that it is temporal and to be used for the glory of God, our life will change. We will indeed be rich. So the question is, what does life look like? I like these, by the way. Not sure I want to see myself online with these on, but hey, why not? I'll do anything for you guys. So what does our life look like when we put the glasses on that help us see life through eternity? What does it look like? I'm going to give you 3 easy things to walk away with. 3 P's. I even make sure they're all starting with the same letter. What does life look like when we put our glasses on and see life through the lens of eternity? Number 1, priority. You make giving a priority. I'm going to talk about money here for a second, but I want you to understand that giving is not just money. Amen. Money's important, but money's also time and energy. Here's the problem, is that when I say, well, I've only given time, I can't give money, so I'm off the hook. Or I give money, and that way, I've done my time, I've given at the office. But when you live life looking at it through the lens of eternity, you make giving a priority. Every time you get, you give. When I was growing up, one of the first lessons I was taught as a kid by my parents was that anytime I got any money, Christmas, birthday, the first thing I did was set aside some to give to God. Amen. First. In the scripture, it's called first fruits. See, any financial planner will tell you you've got to get your priorities straight. And if you listen to anybody like Dave Ramsey or even Andy Stanley, they'll tell you, first thing, pay God, then pay yourself, then pay the bills. But here's the challenge we face in 2018. We've got it backwards. We pay the bills first. And if there's anything left over at the end, then I may put some away for retirement. I may put some away for my kid's college account. And then if I have some extra left over at the end, okay, God, here you go. The problem is, that's not what Scripture tells us. God says, give to me first, and the leftovers, I will bless abundantly. So the first P in living a life, looking at it through the lens of eternity, is make giving a priority. Give first, not last. Amen. Second P, percentage. Pastor Allen talked about that last week. You choose a percentage to give. So if I have $10, in my family, we choose to give 1 to tithe and 1 to offering. So what's left over? How much is left over? If I give in 2, how much is left? The question is, can I live life on 80% of my income? Yes. Should I live life on 80% of my income? Yes. But maybe you're not at that point where you're able to give 10%. I know many of you are college age, and many of you are young professionals just starting out. It doesn't have to be 10%. It can be 5%. So maybe you give 50 cents. But choose a percentage. Choose a percentage and be consistent. Let me share just a 30-second educational blurb for those of us within this context here as the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Many other churches within Christendom talk about paying tithe. You've heard that, right? We talk as Seventh-day Adventists, we talk about tithe too, but there's a difference between us and the Baptist church down the street. What happens with us within our practice, and there's some good to it and there's also some challenges to it, but this is where we are, is that if you take your offering envelope and you say, I'm going to give 10% of tithe and put it in the offering plate, not 1 cent of that money stays here in Arlington, Texas. Did you know that? Within our practice, within our tradition as Seventh-day Adventists, our tithe goes to a central storehouse, a central place. It's called the Texas Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. It's in Alvarado, just down 35. And what that money does is it helps support ministry within this church, because it pays my salary, pays Pastor Allen's salary, Pastor Allison's, Pastor Danny's, Pastor Kevin's. But it also supports Christian education here in the state of Texas. But it also supports ministry and Christian education in North America and around the world. So it's an important part of giving, is giving tithe. But recognize that when you give that tithe, it's not paying It's not staying locally here in the church. That's where offerings come in. Where you mark on your tithe envelope YG, or youth, or church budget, or children's ministries. That stays here to support the ministry of this local church. So often, especially people who come from other denominations, other traditions, are a little confused by that. Because they say, well, tithe, that helps pay the pastor. Yes, but the pastor's not paid by the local church. It's paid by the Texas Conference. I don't want to spend too much time on that. That was kind of the thumbnail sketch. If you're interested, come talk to me later. I can give you a little bit more. I can bore you to death with all the financial stuff. But what I want you to understand is to choose a percentage. I don't mandate to you a percentage. That's between you and God. But what I want to encourage you to do is that as you look at life through the lens of eternity, pick a percentage and be consistent. So make giving a priority, but also pick a percentage. But number 3, be progressive. One of the things that I've discovered as I've gotten older is that I can afford to pay more now than when I was working at a Ponderosa steakhouse when I was 16. When I first worked at the Ponderosa steakhouse when I was 16, I just gave tithe because I couldn't give much more. But when I got my first job as a pastor, I recognized, wow, look at all this money. And then I saw, wow, look at all these bills. But I recognized that, okay, I could give more than that 10%. And I give more percentage-wise today than I could when my wife was in graduate school. Partly because God continues to bless. And here's something I've really discovered. And I teach this to my kids because helping your kids understand this giving concept at a young age is critical, parents. You get that?
Amen.
And the challenge is we've not done a very good job of sharing with our kids this principle. Anytime my kids get something from grandma or grandpa or whoever, and we talk about this idea, well, you need to give some to God, you need to give some to the church. They go, no, I'm going to miss that money. And no, you're not. God's going to bless. And I'm able to tell them, you know what? When I pay God first, I don't miss that money. Because if I'm smart and focused, that $8, so to speak, will go further. Not only because God's blessed it, but because God has helped me understand what it means to be a steward and get my priorities straight. So as a college student, you may be able to give a small amount. That's wonderful. But make sure that that percentage continues to grow as God blesses you.
Amen.
That make sense?
Amen.
So 3 P's of looking through life through the lens of eternity. Make giving a priority. First, not last. Second, a percentage. Pick that percentage and be consistent. And I'm not even going to ask you to give to YG or give. Wherever God puts it on your heart to give to, give. And then third, be progressive. Continue to give as God blesses you. Because viewing life, and especially our wealth, through the lens of eternity loosens its grip on us so that we begin to see life through the lens of eternity. So here's my challenge today. As we come to a close right now. You're somewhere in those 3 P's. Maybe you've just been introduced to this concept of giving and you say, you know what, God? I want to make giving a priority. I've always given kind of at the end of the month when there's really nothing left. But God, I want to make giving a priority. If that's where you are, make that commitment right now. God, I'm going to make giving a priority, first, not last. Maybe you just kind of give when the Spirit moves. The offering plate comes by and you just kind of throw $1 or $2 or some change in there. And you say, God, you know what? I want to be consistent. I want to give that percentage. Focus on that. Choose that percentage and be consistent. But then maybe some of you where God has blessed you and you say, you know what, God, I want to give more because you've given so much to me. Make that commitment today to make giving a priority, to make that percentage consistent and then progressive and give as God blesses you. Because here's what I know, that as we put our glasses on and store up our treasure in heaven and not on earth, God will do amazing things through us for his kingdom.